Well, the Homeland Security is not raiding your home to embarrass you, so let's just disabuse ourselves of that notion. Now, whether he actually gets charged, we don't know, because so far there are no criminal charges that have been filed against him. But clearly, there was enough evidence to present to a magistrate judge to get search warrants to go into his home and to confiscate, matters from his home. We were told, or media reports, that there were electronic devices and other things taken away from his home, and that he was even stopped in an airport in Miami, and things were, phones, I imagine, were confiscated from him. So all very serious, nothing that anyone would want to happen to them. Obviously, his lawyer is denying any wrongdoing. He's categorically denied all of the charges that have been lodged against him in those civil complaints. But I think it's too soon for anyone to know what's going to happen in this case from a criminal standpoint. We already know civilly he's paid some settlement amount to Cassandra Ventura Cassie, and there are other ex-girlfriend, other civil lawsuits that are pending seeking millions of dollars in compensation. So, and he's lost a lot of his business opportunities, and people have walked away from him, as people tend to do when those kind of allegations are made against you.
What are we to make of the fact that it was Homeland Security, Miami, Los Angeles, respectively, as opposed to just the LAPD or the local police department? What are we to make of the fact that Homeland Security are the ones who raided both homes?
Yeah, that's a good question. Homeland Security has a specific unit that focuses on sex trafficking. And if you look at those civil complaints that have been filed, that term, those allegations of sex trafficking come up numerous times throughout those civil lawsuits. So I think what we are to make of it, to the extent we can read anything into the raids, is that they have something to do, or likely have something to do, with sex trafficking.
What do you make of the fact that they put his children in handcuffs and escorted them out of his home, yet when they found him in Miami, he was en route to the Bahamas, they just questioned him, took his cell phone or what have you, but just questioned him, and no arrests were made?
I'm always curious or suspect or concerned when you see that kind of militarized force show up at someone's home. We saw those tanks, and as you said, his kids standing outside with handcuffs. You always have to question, what role does race, what role does the fact that this is a black man have to do with the way the raid was carried out? I think we have talked a whole lot in the last several years in this country about the way that the police departments around this country are using military equipment to engage with people who are not engaged in a war. So I didn't like that show of force. It seemed to be heavy-handed. It seemed to be unnecessary, given that they knew he wasn't home. They knew where he was, right? Because they confronted him in an airport. And I don't think there were any real concerns about violence or anyone in the home shooting at the law enforcement agency. So that part of it disturbing to me. I'm always concerned as a civil rights lawyer about whether somebody's civil rights were being violated, and particularly the issue of race. We can never ignore that. But clearly, as I said, there had to be something in those probable cause statements presented to the magistrate that caused them to say, hey, there's some evidence in there that is going to perhaps lead to some kind of indictment, some kind of criminal charges, et cetera. And one thing, Stephen, that was particularly important is in the last lawsuit filed by the producer, Mr. Jones, Rodney Jones.
Yes.
He talks about cameras. He says that if you are in Sean Combs' home, he has cameras everywhere, and he's watching everyone that's having sex throughout his home. So obviously, my mind tells me one of the things they were probably looking for are those cameras, film footage from those cameras. So I think we can take some cues from some of those lawsuits. Jones
alleged, his former employee, obviously, that has alleged sex trafficking, sexual assault, amongst other things, involving underage girls in the 79-page lawsuit. You just alluded to that. People are looking at P. Diddy right now, and folks who are skeptical, who are cynical, who can dare I say be cruel, attaching guilt where there's nothing proven as of yet, are calling him the Jeffrey Epstein of hip-hop. When you bring up the name Jeffrey Epstein, who committed suicide in 2019, 35 days after he was arrested on sex trafficking charges and what have you, you talked about the show of force that they put out for all of us to see. Do you recall a Jeffrey Epstein situation going down in a similar fashion?
I do not. What I recall about Jeffrey Epstein is lots of folks knew what he was engaged in, and there were efforts to hold him accountable in Florida, even before his the last arrest, I should say, where he was incarcerated or in jail. He's in jail waiting, a trial on those serious charges before he committed suicide. I don't remember tanks rolling up to his mansions. Might have happened, not sure, but I don't personally remember it.
I'm looking at this right now, and again, it's hard to speculate how much trouble he's in, but this is a man that received a Lifetime Achievement Award from BET because of the things that he's accomplished in his career and how he's changed the culture. We knew that he once owned Revolt TV, but I mean, he should still own it, but he's obviously going to have to sell that or what have you. People look at him, and I remember I just interviewed Uncle Luke Campbell, for 2 Live Crew just this past week. And he talked about how Kanye West probably has a worse chance of P. Diddy from recovering from all of this because he attached religion to some of his verbiage and some of the things that he was saying, whereas you look at a guy like P. Diddy, as much as harmful as these allegations may be, you gotta prove that he's guilty of such a matter. When you think about what he has to endure, what's coming down the pike, knowing the law the way that you do, knowing law enforcement and how they can really come at you, how much danger do you perceive P. Diddy being in terms of his reputation? Is it something he can recover from in your estimation?
I think it's going to be very difficult for him to recover. I'm not sure I agree with Luke's assessment about Kanye because it involved religion somehow being easier to recover from. I think in this era, this Me Too era, women in particular are unforgiving of these kinds of allegations, and particularly if there is any evidence about underage girls, I think it's a wrap. We learned from R. Kelly, when we ignored, when we turned a blind eye, when we kept dancing to his music and kept, selling out his concerts, only to be made fools of in many ways, to see the kinds of, the proof that was presented against him, to see the kind of time that he's serving now. I don't see P. Diddy coming back from this unless there is some proof that all of these allegations are categorically false. And that's not typically what you see in these cases, particularly in the civil cases. We see what we saw in Cassie's case, a quiet settlement, a non-disclosure agreement, and it kind of goes away. But the allegations haven't gone away. The lawsuit has gone away. We don't know what they settled for, but he's never been exonerated from the allegations that Cassie has made. So I think this is a different era. I think in this era, those kinds of allegations can be the death knell of your career. If this was an actor, the chances of him acting in another movie, I think, would be slim to none. Producers would be afraid to touch him. Other actors don't want to be, in proximity or be on a set with him. So,
what about the billionaires he's known to fraternize with? What about all of those folks?
Well, where are they? I haven't seen any of them in social media coming out saying that's my boy, saying all this is a lie. So you tell me, where are they? I'm looking for them too. These are underage girls. Even folks who, and I've had some guys, I did an interview with a radio host in Chicago. And he says, Reba, when these kind of allegations get made, and what's sex trafficking?
You must
How
not
do we
have
know
daughters
it's
or
forced?
sisters.
So even if people are willing to give some kind of pass on the adults in the room, when you get to children, I don't know a person, a single solitary soul that's going to give you a pass on engaging in sexual conduct with children.
If P. Diddy asked you to give, my last question to you on this subject, if P. Diddy asked you to give him legal advice on this matter, if you, dare I say, was representing P. Diddy on this matter, what advice would you give him?
Stay quiet. For one, before the raids, he was on social media, doing some Instagram videos. Stay quiet. There's nothing right now that you can say. Let your legal team do its work. Let them find those witnesses that can substantiate your claim of innocence, because you're going to need them, either in a civil case that likely, one of these cases may end up in trial, and you're going to have to defend yourself. If you find yourself indicted or charged in a criminal case, you're going to have to defend yourself. So let your legal team, hire the best lawyers you can, and let them do their work. Keep your head down and stay low profile and just do what it is you're doing to try to keep your businesses together and your family. And most importantly, I'd say to him, your daughters. He has 3 daughters. So can you imagine your daughters having to wake up and see allegations that your father is a sex predator? Get your girls in counseling and keep them close.
I thought that was going to be my last question, but you did bring up R. Kelly, and I got to ask this. Precedence does matter. And when we see, even though that was a different situation, different case, when we see what ultimately happened with him, he's going to be serving about 30 years in jail. He's in the midst of serving about 30 years in jail. How much, if at all, does that play a role in the likelihood of a mountain of legal matters just coming down on him like a tsunami in light of what happened with R. Kelly?
It plays a big role, I think, in terms of how people are responding. Those billionaires, those buddies of his that used to party with him, I think folks are making sure they keep their distance because of what did happen with R. Kelly. Folks used to come to the defense. There were a lot of people came to the defense of R. Kelly, and only to find themselves on the wrong side of that story, the wrong side of history. See, we've had this evolution in this country around sexual assault. 15 years ago, if representing women, and I've represented a lot of women in sexual harassment, sexual assault claims, the women were shamed. They were often humiliated. They would often lose their jobs, their reputation, their positions, and the man was always believed. Now, not always, but more often than not, the man would be, somehow come out the hero. And Me Too, we've had a whole paradigm shift. I mean, it's a shift in the way these cases are treated, the way women are treated, and no longer is it the case that powerful men are given the benefit of the doubt. We are now willing and ready to hold them accountable.
What specifically shifted the paradigm? Is there any incident that stands out in your mind that changed the course of history to the standpoint that what we're living in right now, where things have changed so drastically and favorably, I might add, because this needed to happen?
Oh, the pendulum needed to swing, right? It was horrible, absolutely positively horrible. What would happen to women. I think social media had a lot to do with it. Women being willing to come forward and tell their story. There's something powerful and there's strength in numbers. So you get one woman telling her story, it's easy to dismiss one person. You get a multiple number of people. You can even dismiss them. But look at Bill Cosby, a case like that. There were tens of dozens of women that came forward and had a story about Bill Cosby, drugging them, sexually assaulting them. It's hard to dismiss that many people. That's kind of what's happening now to P. Diddy. Cassie Ventura's lawsuit, we thought that was it. And in many ways, it just opened the floodgates for others.
It did, because she filed the lawsuit. The next day it was settled, but it didn't stop other allegations from coming down the pipe within a matter of days.
And people get emboldened. Now, some people say, and one of Sean's lawyers is a good friend of mine, some folks say it just creates a money grab. Folks who are out there just trying to grab money and, take advantage of this opportunity. I don't discount that. There are false allegations that are made, no doubt about it, but overwhelmingly, women who come forward and make these kinds of allegations, they know what they're going to face. They know the challenges going against someone as powerful as P. Diddy or Jeffrey Epstein. So this is no cakewalk. This is not easy. This is not for the faint of heart. So if you are courageous enough to tell this story, my belief is you're probably telling the truth.
Yeah, I'm going to give you an opportunity to check me on my own show, because one of the things you got on me about was that, how I've been so disgusted with the Democratic Party because we're relying on a soon-to-be 82-year-old for 4 more years. And I respect your opinion so much. I respect your thoughts so much. It's not the first time I've interviewed you. I'm certainly hoping it won't be the last. But I want to give you an opportunity to get at me because of that before I let you get on out of it, because I know you do. Go ahead. The floor is yours, Aretha.
Okay, what I want to say to you is you have such an incredible platform and following, and people respect you and they look up to you. And we need your voice pulling in the direction of saving this democracy. So please save your complaints and all of your gripes about the Democratic Party until after we win this election. It is not a perfect party by any stretch of the imagination. I have my own complaints, some personal issues I have with the party.
And we're going to talk about this at a later date. Yes, we are.
I am mature enough as a voter to recognize that everything we believe in this country is on the line in this election. And we have too many folks with powerful positions and platforms pulling against us. So those of us who are going to vote for Joe Biden, and you told me
Yes,
you were one of
yes,
them,
I am.
then you need to check yourself so that you are not sending conflicting and contradictory messages, because somebody will tell me, well, Stephen A. Smith said he's disgusted with the Democratic Party, so I'm not voting at all. So not voting at all is a vote for Donald Trump.
I would never encourage people not to vote.
No,
I would never do that.
You're not encouraging them
Right.
purposefully and intentionally, but when you say you're disgusted with the party, somebody could interpret that to mean don't vote for the